Hi everyone, this is Catching Up with the Nerds with your hosts Tom and JC and special guest Tim. This is a podcast about two dads that are catching up on all the nerdy stuff we miss, sharing how we pass on our nerdy passion to our kids, and deep diving into nerd pop culture to make it more accessible for you. Hier op de met bestuursdag papier, dus denk about die netste, hier op de schapieter, hier naar Sapio, hier is Samuel, that's here in the door. No fun to check here, that's that, dus dat is ik af, is het. Cycle shops, so hurry, welcome back, everyone.
Hello. That was a great intro, as usual. Jeez. It's Sunday again, JC. It's Sunday, and what do we do on a Sunday? We do
podcast, buddy.
With podcasts. Anyway, we are not alone. If you're on YouTube right now, you can see there's a third person. There's somebody below us. On the screen. He's there. Everyone say welcome to Tim. Tim, hello.
Hey folks. Yeah, hi, how's it going?
All right. So Tim is JC's friend, local friend, you know.
Local.
Are you guys neighbors actually? Oh, not really.
We're about
closer now, yeah, actually, right?
Ish.
Yeah, so we're like a less than 10-minute walk from each other.
Yeah.
All right, so technically neighbors.
Yeah, for the UK audience, people do walk in the United States occasionally.
It's true. And bike ride and everything, yeah.
Has been known to happen.
Go ahead and say that's a myth. Anyway, so Tim is here to talk Tenet, the movie, Christopher Nolan movie, Tenet.
Very good.
But before we do that, please go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us more about yourself. What do you do? Who are you?
I'm Tim. I am a software engineer for Google. And I'm a friend of JC's. Yeah, we've known each other, gosh, like 5, 6, 7 years at this point. It's been a while.
Yep.
And yeah, I have a 12-year-old daughter. I guess sort of my like nerd credibility is sort of, I grew up watching sci-fi on TV with my dad and my brother. You know, Saturdays were Star Trek: The Next Generation, and then Doctor Who. So, you know, so that was like, my dad's actually from the UK. And so, you know, he plugged us into like sci-fi culture that way. So we did Doctor Who, we did Blake 7. And then Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, of course. And as an adult, I read Ian M. Banks as well, who's the Scottish author of really great sci-fi that I really love. So, you know, I'm not like a super fan. I have never been to a convention, and I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of Star Trek: The Next Generation, but I have watched it several times from end to end. And so I'm like, yeah, you know, there's that episode with Geordi where he's in the thing. So anyway, yeah. And I'm really excited to watch Tenet, or to talk Tenet with you guys. As I was telling you guys before we started recording, I've watched this film probably 6 or 7 times at this point, and none of my friends have been able to see it yet, and so I still haven't talked about it. So I'm really excited to be here.
We're here today, tonight, this morning. I don't know when you guys are listening to this or watching to this, but we are about to talk about Tenet, and I'm quite excited about this one. I think Tim is excited. JC is super excited. He's watched the movie twice in 48 hours. And he's bursting with ideas and things he loved and things he didn't love. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to split this episode in two, because as Tenet is quite a very interesting subject. There's a lot to uncover. There's a lot to unpack from that film. So we decided to go and do this in 2 parts. The first part will be just talking about the film, what we liked, what we didn't like. Things we thought went well, things we thought were a bit so we'll do that now. And then if you want to do a little bit of dive into the theories and the questions, and listen to our questions and maybe our answers, most importantly, about those questions, you can jump straight into part 2. But we don't want you to do that. Please stay with us, and you'll be able to listen and enjoy our takes, whatever, on this awesome Christopher Nolan movie, part of the Nolan universe, extended universe, NEU, something like that. Should we say that? NCU, the Nolan Cinematic Universe. Anyway, let's start with that. What is Tenet? What's the movie about? I think we're gonna go with JC's infamous 3 sentences, description. Let's get it out of the way first.
Yeah, so this is a tricky one because a lot happens in this movie.
Yeah.
But if I had to bubble down to like the three things this movie's about is, get ready for it. Drum roll plays. Denzel's kid wakes up and decides to save the world. Rich people suck.
Yeah.
And this is a Bond movie. Done.
Boom.
Mic drop.
Drop
Cool.
the mic.
Join
Drop
us in
the mic.
part 2
Done.
for theories and questions.
That's it.
And I'll be back.
And there we go. I think it sums it up quite well. It's a way of analyzing the movie, I guess. But for those who haven't seen it, and I hope you have seen it, so I'm gonna go with whatever was in Wikipedia because they have a great way of describing things, and I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna try to break my brain one more time trying to describe what Tenet is about. So I'm gonna just read off Wikipedia. So Tenet is a film which obviously follows a secret agent, the protagonist. Do we actually know his name? Do we ever get to? No, we don't know his name, right? So the protagonist,
By design,
yes, who learns to manipulate the flow of time to prevent an attack from the future that threatens to annihilate and destroy the present world. That's
I will jump in right.
Yeah.
I will jump in right now and say, like, for everyone out there that has not watched this movie, you need to turn off this podcast, go watch the movie twice in 48 hours, and then come back and listen to this podcast because we are going to spoil a lot right now. So this is not spoiler free whatsoever.
No,
Yeah,
there'd be
Please
no
come
way to
back
talk
to
about this film with a spoiler-free way.
You said that I've watched a video of some guy doing a film critic trying to do a spoiler-free section followed by a spoiler. Like the spoiler-free section lasted about 3 minutes, and he was like, I cannot proceed with my next point without telling you what the hell is going on. Okay, then let's kick it off with the first part, which is the things we loved, the things we've enjoyed. So why don't we have team to kick us off? You know, what did you like?
Right.
What was the thing?
Yeah. Thank you. I think I have to start with the music. I mean, I know it's a film primarily, but the music is obviously very present in the film, and it's a really stunning achievement. The soundtrack is amazing as is as well. Like if you just listen to it, you know, by itself. Which I do actually not infrequently, especially after having watched it recently. You know, he did a bunch of interesting things. He's got space in the score. He's got reversed instruments in the score. There's quite a lot of that going on. It's used as a storytelling device in the very final battle scene as well, which is like really important because you're trying to keep track of essentially which direction of time you're following through it, and without that sort of like that, I think it's a guitar, but I'm not totally sure, like there's this sort of swelling kind of pleasant tone that happens whenever the reverse sequence starts to sort of orient you, and I think it's really important. And it just, and as Thomas's as Tom's 4-year-old said, it slaps, right? It's just great. and you also have the Nolan womps, right? You need the Nolan, like a lot of brass, and he actually supplements it with some bass guitar too when the 747 is really starting to smash stuff. And yeah, it's outstanding. The other thing I really love is just, you know, it's actually shot on location, right? He's got these stunning visuals all over the world. And that's why it's a $200 million film, right? It's just schlepping all that stuff various places and having long shoots where you just got to move. Is very expensive, but it shows on screen. I actually rewatched Dr. No as well as a prep for this because, you know, there's some similarities between the Bond franchise and this. And I think Tenet also, because there's so little digital effects, it will stand the test of time, where all those visuals will just translate and they're just going to be gorgeous in 50 years as they were today. And you get the same kinds of things in the Bond franchise where, you know, maybe like a Black Panther has these stunning visuals, sort of, you know, sometimes it's like, well, it feels a little bit less real because it's, you know, it's not even a matte painting, but it's a, you know, it's just a digitally created environment. And so you just lose something by doing that. So like, I really value that in the movie.
I just want to go back to your first point, which was the music. And that's something that is always hugely important in any Nolan films. And this one was I kind of put it on the same level with my favorite film, which is Interstellar. So there's two things that sort of, again, that draw parallels on. It's like there's that scene, if you guys have seen Interstellar, there's that scene when they go onto the planet that is completely submerged with water, and then every minute is 7 years back on planet Earth, something like that. And the music, the counting, every single bit is a day, I think, a week back on Earth. So if you listen to the music, it's slightly off. The beats are slightly off, but it's because, like, okay, that's a week, that's another week. And it's the same thing here with Tenet. Is that final battle scene? I was like, oh, the first time when I watched it, I was like, oh, the music's a bit weird. And then I realized that, oh, actually, red team, blue team.
Absolutely.
Can't remember, is it blue team that goes forward or red team that goes forward? I can't remember that.
Blue team goes backwards. Yeah, red team goes forward.
Okay, so red team would have the music going forward, and then blue team would have the music, same music, transitioning into the same song going backwards. Which, if you don't pay attention at first, if you're not in cinema, if you're watching like us on a phone or on laptop, you're like, oh no, nothing happened. But then if you really pay close attention on the TV, and you're like, oh, damn, he's done it again. He's made the music really, really important and interesting, and being part of that scene. Sometimes it can be an afterthought, and in that case, being a Nolan film, attention to details matter, and he goes, bang, here you go.
Well, Inception has the same sort of cues, right? Where you have the same song, it's just slowed down because of the time dilation as you go deeper into the dream. You have the same mechanism there. So I think it's a cool motif that he's brought forward into each one of his projects.
Slaps. And the thing is, in terms of visuals, the thing, like, there's like the big cinematography, but actually I really appreciated that this film, one, is just the fact that it's shot on film. Just coming back to that, Tim, it to me is just gigantic. Like, just the not having that hyper real feel to it, like, and the fact that there were like it felt like every scene had a distinct color palette to it, right? Especially the whole play between red and blue, which you get a lot of that like cement gray in a bunch of like action movies that is just like super dull with like pops of color here and there. Just the use of color I thought was really interesting. And if I'm honest, I really like that you can usually tell when actors have been airbrushed, right? It's like Tom and I worked when we worked together. We sit literally. There was an entire team sat next to us. That's all they did. They airbrush models all day long on videos. Yeah. And here, like, you can see the imperfections in characters. Like Elizabeth Debicki, at times, like, you can see she's having like a little acne breakout, like at certain points in the movie, and it's like, and I did not catch up on that. Shout out to Blank Check Pod, they pointed that out, and I just thought it was like, yeah, you're right. Actually, I like that it has like that very tactile feel to it. Like, nothing feels overly polished, even though this is my second point. Is like, I love the outfits. Oh my God, man! They dress everyone so well, and they have that thing that's like, all the suits are totally weather appropriate. Yeah. Which I thought was such a nice touch. All the suits are super weather appropriate. And it's just nice. The way they dressed Becky, let her be tall, let her look elegant. Like, that was super cool. Like, not overly sexualizing her. Like, all that was like really tastefully done, I thought.
Absolutely. Yeah. I sort of feel like I haven't actually seen the film yet because I've watched it on my laptop at home, and I haven't, like, I'm a father, and so I don't have time to watch it on the TV. It's the 2.5 hour movie sometimes, and it's shot in IMAX, right? And so if you don't, right, it's 70 millimeter. It's a huge film stock, so they're going to do things with that you just can't. You're not going to be able to realize even on a big screen TV. So I'm very excited to see if they'll have kind of like a re-release after this 18-month pause that we've all been in for a while, and actually catch it on a big screen at the very least.
Yeah. And actually, there's some movie theaters in LA that I heard about that they take the IMAX experience, but then they actually further expand it. So it's almost like surround. So they it's usually when there's like a big cinematographer, like a big scene moment. They don't do the whole movie that way. Just for certain scenes, they expand it so you feel like immersed in the setting. I'm like, this movie would be perfect for that. I thought it'd be such a good thing.
Well, any movie film shot on IMAX could really done that. Like, again, Nolan's Batman, the second one was meant to be shown that way, also on a big IMAX. With I think there was one in London, one cinema in London that actually did that, like a whole 360 experience. literally 360 around there. So I don't know how you work the sits, like if you've got like a pivoting sitting arrangement. I have no idea how that works, but I can see Tenet being one of those, especially like imagine that big airport scene with the plane going smashing into a building, seeing the wings around you, and you're like, that could have been that could have been quite something. I'm gonna add one. I think it was the cast. So great casting. We talked, you talked about Denzel's kid. What's his full name? Actually, it's John. Well, I can never remember.
John David Washington.
John David Washington. So for some reason, J.D. Washington. Let's put it that way. Which he's. I like the way his take on the character is awesome. I like the way he's dark and moody. Like he's got that vibe when he's never smiling. It's like, I'm here to not necessarily punch my way out of anything. Which, that said, my favorite scene in the entire film is the way he punches himself out, punches his way out of a restaurant. I thought that scene was like, I was not expecting that. I went, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Wait, let's talk about that scene.
Well,
Sorry, we got to come back to that scene. Dude, so that to me was John Wick all the way.
Yes.
And my first thought was like, please give John Wick a cheese grater. Like, that's all I want in life now. Just give John Wick a cheese grater.
You don't want to give John Wick a cheese grater, no.
and it goes back to like the audio effects of this thing. It's like you don't really see him grate the guy's face, but just the sound of it was perfect. It wasn't over the top. It wasn't too subtle, but it was enough to make you cringe. Mm-hmm. And I see a lot of cringy movies, and that just made me take a pause. Because like, dude, that had to hurt. That had to hurt so much. Incredibly well choreographed fight, like very nicely done.
Yeah. Well, talking about the fight choreography, I mean, the entire sequence where he's fighting himself, and he does it twice in the film, once from each perspective. And of course, the first time through, you don't know that it's him. But, I've read that they had to learn how to do certain things backwards as much as possible. So you'd have one person who's reacting to things in a backwards way. And then as you're filming that, then it makes sense. And so for as much as they could, they were able to do that. I
think he had to learn to walk and run backwards, I think.
Absolutely. The entire sequence when he leaves the inversion room and gets into the car and then drives the car away, that's all shot in reverse, right? It's like, because you can see the clouds and the birds move. So
that's all in reverse. He had to learn how to drive in reverse and all that stuff. You do learn that a little bit, but that in terms like driving an entire road in reverse, that's a different business. But it's interesting. It's interesting that what they had to do. And there was another thing that he does in there that is also in reverse. There's a bunch of mind-blowing scenes where you're just like, that looks weird. Enough of JD. I want to talk. The one person we've not talked about, which is Robert Patterson. I think we've not mentioned him before we started recording.
Hey,
Batman. So, your new Batman.
Sparkle vampire.
Yeah, sparkling vampire. But again, it's funny you say that because he's moved away from that so very much. There's no like this. Mm-hmm. It's funny. Sometimes you don't really see the evolution of an actor, but with him, it's like he's massively evolved to become this great. Like he's picked first. The first good thing for him is like his agents must be an awesome agent because he's picked amazing roles for him now in the last few couple of years. But that one, I think, is just that he's Neil. You don't know who he is. You don't know much about who Neil is and what he does, and so sort of this savior in the entire story. But then I thought the way he's acting him and the way he's just cool. I thought he was really cool. I was like, I want to be Neil. I mean, not saying I want to get shot, at the end of the film, but he's got a cool character. He's the guy who's somehow leading the protagonist. He could be the leader of the story, but even though he's not, but he's got this quality, he's got this presence on screen. I thought that was something. I was very pleased with his performance. So that's one thing. Anything else you like?
He has the stuff that you can't act your way into. Like he could just sit in a scene and look good, not in the he looks handsome sort of way, because he does, but in the he draws your eye to what he's doing very easily without doing much. And that's something that I always appreciate about him, because his acting isn't over the top. It's very subtle, actually. Because he's hiding so much the whole movie. He purposely is like hiding something, and just the way he changes that, and was again going into spoiler land, but like in that last scene, well, almost last scene of the movie, when he talks to the protagonist about the fact that they've known each other, like just the turn in his acting is subtle enough, but it turns into like, and you're my buddy. Or like, or possibly it's like I love you, right? It's like they could have had a relationship, who knows? But it's like there's a connection that he switches on so delicately. I thought was really well done.
And he's also in many ways, I think he's assuming the role of Christopher Nolan, as in like he's explaining the movie. So there's bits where he's trying to explain the movie to the audience and to the protagonist, but also the audience, when he's like, there's a couple lines where he goes, "Does your head hurts already?" And he's like, and it's like, yeah, whatever, man. It somehow it feels like he's assuming Nolan's role in this thing, and it's just like, you guys understand what's going on, and everybody in the audience goes, no, yes, you know, and then it's like, yeah, okay, got you, let's go, and it's like, let's move this forward, let's go, next scene, it's quite interesting. That's why I like Patterson's role in this. Do you guys have anything else you want to give?
Sator. I'm curious what you guys think about Kenneth Branagh's Sator as well. Yeah.
Oh, you go for it, dude.
Okay. I quite like it. He's a Bond villain, obviously, and so there's always that megalomania that's irrational that they have to start with, and you kind of just have to say, well, I don't really understand it necessarily, but if I take that as a given, all of his actions make sense, and the menace in his totally undersold performance, where his lips barely move and he's saying these horrible things to John David Washington when they first meet in person at the dinner, and it's so brief, and I really liked it from a lot of those angles. And then he's got these tiny explosive moments, where he lets the rage just all of a sudden come out, and I really enjoyed the performance. The one part that I found a little bit tough was the speech at the end, where they're talking over the walkie-talkie. I think Bond movies do better when they have some kind of not necessarily physical confrontation, but it would be better if those two characters were in the same room in some fashion. Yeah. And he's delivering that speech to another person, as opposed to, I'm just talking to a walkie-talkie. The content of it is like, all right, fine, whatever. He's got it's a little bit more explanatory. He's just saying, look, here's why they're doing this, so that you can understand why they're doing it. The oceans rose and the world's falling apart and they blame us. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that all makes sense. But why are you killing everybody? Oh, I'm just a jerk. And I don't even get to tell you that face to face. So it's like, I don't know if there's a different plot structure that you could have, where you could have that conversation in person, or at the very least, maybe he could, Elizabeth Debicki's character could say, look, I know about everything. I can't believe you're doing this. And they have the argument. And so you don't get it with John David Washington, who's like, that's fine, but you could maybe have it with those two characters. But of course, they had this other thing that they're trying to resolve. So maybe there's just not room for it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, actually, I'll jump back because I've got some thoughts about that. In terms of, so one, it's like I agree with you. We do not get the what is it? Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Yeah.
Like, we don't necessarily get that in its truest sense. And also, like, I'm going to overly explain my plot to you early on in the movie. He explains his plot kind of end of the movie, so it doesn't quite track. That's not.
But wait, there's no beginning, there's no end in this film, so. It's a non-linear film. It's what Nolan does.
Yeah,
it's non-linear.
He's literally explaining that before the events of the first scene of the film, right? In the timeline,
so
right?
Technically,
those things happen at the same time. Yeah.
But is it, don't get on the container if you're still, don't get on the helicopter if you're still thinking linearly?
Yeah.
What am I messing
exactly.
So
good.
But no, the thing about him that I find really interesting is that's why I put in the lines like rich people suck. And it's because it's like when you look at like he amassed everything he ever wanted. He knew he was going to die. All that's left is legacy for him, right? So for me, that actually is the motivator. It's legacy, because he actually doesn't care about the people in the future having like clean water and like the oceans like lowering out or stuff. He actually doesn't care about that. He cares about like, I gave it to you. And that's why the scene with the Becky is so important. Because at first, like, why would she rush it with the whole world at stake? Yeah. Why would she rush and kill him? The first time I watched it, I was like, that makes no sense. Like, she's very driven by her kid, but even she will admit that the world is more important than her kid, right? But it was because it was his own hubris, right? He wanted to go out as a king, and she's like, no, you're going out as a chump, dude. And you're kind of like falling over in the most like awful way over the side of a boat that I've ever seen.
His head hits the deck too. I was like, is he actually okay? Did a stunt person have to do that?
I know.
So good. Like a wheelbarrow. He's like,
and the fact she looked down, so she knew that was going to happen before she wheeled up. She put in the sunblock and everything. I'm like,
the sunblock,
you go, girl, man. That was so well thought out.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's his own hubris that drives him, right? Of just like, I will leave a legacy because I have nothing else to want in this world.
Yeah. And he even just says about his son, right? He says, my greatest sin is bringing a son into the world that I knew was doomed, but I'm still gonna literally kill him right now, like,
because it's still that is not his legacy. His legacy was he did. Even his son was not his legacy, right? But no, out of all, to your point about Kenneth Branagh's acting, because he can tend to overact like with the best of them, right?
Sometimes.
And one scene that to me was the most striking one with him was the belt scene, when he comes into the room, takes off the cufflinks, and then takes just that extra step of putting the cufflink back on the belt that he's going to hit her. I'm like, at that point, it really disturbed me, actually, more than anything else that I saw in that movie. Like, that part really, because just the thought of it, that he even like put the cufflink back on, it shows how devious he was. And I think that was really good, like, character building there. It just comes very late in the movie, or as you might see it, very early in the movie. Who knows? Yeah. But it definitely comes in the movie at some point, right?
Yeah. It's
time is a lake.
He's a very menacing character in the entire thing. But it's a funny thing, because as I started, because I didn't really, like, I stayed clear from the trailer and everything, so I wasn't really aware of who was in the film. Like, I went in completely, I knew that Denzel's son was in there, and it was the Nolan film. That was it. So when Branagh came into the picture, I was like, that's the bad guy? Really? That's what we're going with? Damn it. But then it's like, he's playing this so well that you cannot help but believe that he's actually he's got nothing to lose. Like, he has everything. He's about to go anyway. It's like, well, I'm taking everybody down. You know, that one sentence he's got, which is, if I can't have you, then nobody else can. Nobody else will. I think something along those lines. It's like, it's literally, he's not just talking to his wife. He's talking about, to everyone. It's like, look, I'm out. You're out. You're going down with me. Everything's gotta. I'm going to set everything on fire or on ice or whatever. So he's a very good choice. And I think he's got a right. Is he a writer also in the film, or a producer? I think he's either helped with writing the script. I think he's somehow involved with that. He's obviously being a director himself. He's a very talented man, but he's shown that, like, his evolution in the entire film is very creepy. He's a creepy man.
A couple of reviews of Artemis Fowl would think otherwise, Tom.
Well, yeah, fine.
No, man, but the fact that he can actually direct that level, that scale of film, maybe sometimes well, sometimes not, but doing that and acting, it is pretty amazing. Just very few people can pull that one off, right?
You don't become a professional director by being, you have to have quite certain qualities. So, then the end product of a film is very dependent on a large amount of people on that team. So sometimes your vision is not what it should have been, what it could have been. Moving on. Anything else you want to give a thumbs up, or plus, or like?
I think we're gonna move into plot. Just a little plot action.
I don't know that I'll say one thing. I don't know that I doubled down on it quite enough when we talked about it. He did crash a 747 into the back of a building.
That was pretty insane. And there was no special effect. I was looking for the edges on that one, man. I was
Yes.
like, I bet you they moved the plane into an open hangar and the destruction is special effects. And I kept looking. I'm like,
No.
that looks legit. Man.
No, they built this, so that part of the building you can kind of see where so they added on. It is actually shot at an airport. They added on that big like foyer area that it actually crashes into and smushes. That's the piece that they built, but they just built it and then crashed a real 747 that they bought into it. It's just stunning.
Actually, the one bit of interaction between two characters that actually did make me laugh out loud was the bit before that when Robert Patterson explained what the plan is. Like, you want to crash your what? Like, yeah, just crash. No, it's slightly more dramatic than that. Don't be so dramatic. just fine.
Yeah,
I was not expecting.
So,
that
and then Himesh Patel, right? We didn't talk much about him either, but his performance. He's just like, what? What does he say? He says, grand, I'm okay with. I thought you were going to say nuts. So good.
He's very good, and he has such a small role, but he makes so much out of the role, man. Because he doesn't get lost in it. But he, out of all the supporting actors, he was my favorite by a mile.
Absolutely, everybody's so cool in this film. So yeah. Anyway,
that's true. Well, actually, you know what? It's funny you say that. You say everybody's very cool. That's actually something that will lead me into something I didn't like from the film, which has to do with being cool. Yes, sir.
Can we do my Bond deconstruction moment of the plot?
Yeah, but I mean, it's something you like. You want to talk about the plot, so let's go.
Did you like it or did you not like it?
Oh, I
liked it. Okay, so we're still.
I think there's a lot of, but I can whiz through these, right? So it's
okay, well, in that case, the floor is open. Go.
Yeah, my big thing with this is like, I had heard for a while that Christopher Nolan wanted to make a Bond movie, right? I mean, everybody's heard that, right? Like it's the same with Tarantino's wanted to make like a Star Trek movie for ages and ages, right? Only like Nolan found a way around it because the Broccoli's were never going to let him do this to Bond, right? It's like, but I think he did one of the most faithful adaptations of Bond that we've had in the last couple of years. That's my thing. It's like, I liked the Daniel Craig movies. I'll put my hand up. I absolutely like them because I thought that it gave a Bond like a emotional core. But then when you look at the Bond movies as a structure, they don't need an emotional core. They just need to be cool. That's all they need to do. And a couple of things that need to be there, right? So it's like Bond has no motivations. And this is kind of circling back to something that we talked about earlier that I wanted to come back to, which is at some point, Sator says to the protagonist, he says, your faith is blind. You're a fanatic. That is what Bond is. Bond is a fanatic. He does it for the thrill of it. He does it because it's there to be done. There's no underlying motivation to it. That in any other franchise, that equals sloppy writing. But in the Bond franchise, it just works. And if you lead into that, it's good. Because the problem now with Daniel Craig is, where do you take Bond? Like he lost Vesper. Like all these other things are happening to him. Like they've taken away everybody from him. And they're like, I guess there's no story left. Let's just start again. And then I'll say it again. Cast Idris Elba, you cowards. That will be my next Bond. But having said that, the villain is a stereotype. He's a walking stereotype at every corner. And the stakes are basically vague. To our point earlier, or his conversation, it's kind of like it's his own hubris. That's it. He's a bad guy, right? But where I think this take an interesting turn that the Bond movies have had a problem with is the Bond girl. Right. So we didn't talk about Elizabeth Debicki. We didn't talk about Kat, but she is the Bond girl in this movie in a certain extent. Mm-hmm. And while Nolan is not great at writing women, let's put that out there. But because in this movie, I feel she has at least a bit more agency that gets given to her in that final moment with Branagh. Right. Like she gets to take back the things she wanted because she wanted her son. But more importantly, she's like, you're not going to win because you saw me flinch when you gave me the ultimatum, right? So it's like the fact that she can, like, they set that up. That's like as much of an arc as we get. It's like they set that up early and then like close on it at the end. I'm like, amazing, great. That like even if the Bond movies can just like slightly move in that direction with the Bond girls, and now that Phoebe Waller-Bridge is part screenwriting the next one, I hope that comes in. And then the last thing I'll say is like that. In the same way, like Bond movies don't need to over-explain, I think that this doesn't over-explain either. Even though there are moments that there's a lot of explanation happening, but if you compare this to Inception, Inception explains a lot, which is necessary for that movie, I think. I still appreciate that. But in this movie, I think they don't do too much explaining, and that they let you fill in the blanks, which is a lot of happens in Bond movies. It's like they don't explain to you like they're like how a car jumps into the water and becomes a submarine, right? It's like that doesn't get explained ever, but it's so cool. So that's my Bond rant.
That's awesome.
Yeah, all right, cool. But, there's just a couple of things that we'll have to disagree, but we'll get to that one in the things we don't.
Yeah,
like,
let's then that's a world-class pivot, Tom.
Let's pivot. No, let's go. In that case, let's go into things we didn't like. Shall I kick this one off?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, do I want to go with the technical bit first, or do I want to go with literally pivoting on what you just said? Actually, you know what? I'll go with what you just said. So, in the things, the one thing that really, I think I need to go do the whole spiel, otherwise it won't make much sense. So, apart from the audio issue, which is something that Nolan does, please refer to every single Batman movie he's done. I call it the Bane Curse, which is literally imagine going on set and everybody's wearing a mask and I'm like, what the hell has he just said? Please also note, I'm digressing, that they've had to re-record the audio for Bane in Batman because people were like, huh? So when the Blu-ray came out, they actually re-recorded the audio for Bane. So that's one thing. So that happens also in Tenet, where the audio for me got in the way. So my first viewing of the film, I went in with no subtitles, obviously being French. There are a lot of things like sometimes I'm like, what did you say? And that got in the way. And I was like, okay, sure, but I'm not sure. It got in the way in terms of storyline. I was like, wasn't sure what was going on. And then I got to the end of the film, I was like, I'm not entirely sure what the whole thing was about. Watched it a second time around, subtitles, and I went, okay, cool. Now I understand what's going on. I was like, okay, it sort of makes sense to me in a weird Nolan way. I can sort of understand what the storyline is about. But, and that's where we get to your point, JC, which was like, they don't need to explain. I had an issue with the pacing. The pacing of the film, to me, got in the way to trying to understand, because the concept of inversion, the concept of entropy, they're quite big topics. They're very complicated things to understand. And that's why in the film, there's a couple lines where the protagonist meets with the scientist. The first meeting is like, don't try and understand it. You have to feel it. Is that what she said? Like,
yeah.
You have to feel it. Don't try and understand it. And I think that line was put in there on purpose. He was like, you guys don't try and understand what I'm going on about. Just look at the explosions. Go for it. So, and the pacing of the film was a bit over the top, because it's like you go from one scene to another and you just go bang, bang, bang. And again, I'm repeating myself. It's like they're all very high concepts. All the ideas and everything that is being brought to you, they're not things that you can digest in like, I know what you mean, entropy. Of course I know what entropy is. No, it's something you have to go like, okay, let's, if you're at home, you can pause it and go on Wikipedia real quick and go entropy and then try to make sense out of that. You're like, your head will explode anyway. But that said, if it felt like he was like, first scene, next scene, let's go, let's move. We don't have time. Like, I want to get this under 3 hours. I don't got time for this. Like, you guys move. And I was like, can we please just like let it breathe a little bit? Like, so you mentioned Inception. Inception is a lot slower in pace, and there's a lot of breathing room between each scenes. Like, there's a little music, there's a little bit of thing, there's a setup, and then and that takes me to my next point, which is the way the script was written, the way the actual lines that are given to the actors, the way they delivered felt to me a bit off, in a way that there's like no one in the world has those conversations like the way they have in it, and the way they deliver those conversations, right? You know, when for example the protagonist is walking around with what's her name, Priya, I think it's the Priya. And it's like, and you know, the type of conversation is like, we'll go into the future, but the future is nothing without the past. What do you think? And it's not even nice, like, and it's like, and I'm like, can you guys have a normal conversation like that? You know, like in real life, it's like, yeah, so you know, like inversion, entropy, and all that stuff. Have you got like, do you want a coffee? Yeah, cool. Like, there's no scenes like that is relatable in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's all very like, almost like in an anime. Like in anime, when they talk to each other, it's like, I'm gonna save the world, and it's like they go into this massive, almost big speeches. When you go like, whoa, no one speaks like that. Calm yourself down, And again, going back to what JC was saying, or you guys were saying, it's like, oh, this movie is cool, everything's cool. It's like, it's almost like they are aware that it's a cool movie, and it's almost like, look how cool it is, look how cool we are. So everything you actually like, also, I felt it was almost pushed to an extreme. It's like, oh damn, we look good. Look, you see how well I speak. listen. Like, can you see how well spoken I am? Like, can you understand what I'm saying? No. Next, and it's like, come on, like, just take 2 seconds to let us try and understand that. And again, to my point, it's like the protagonist, he understands everything the first time, and I was like, so
he's Bond.
Does that make sense? It's like, yeah, sure. Next. It's like, I understood everything you had to say about that very extremely high-end philosophical discussion we just had walking down the street. Like, so in a way, it's cool. It's really, really cool, because it's nice to have a film like that doesn't try to hold your hand. But also, on the other hand, I think that's pushed to the extreme in a certain way. And it's like, you guys chill. You guys have to chill. You guys have to give us time to process information and maybe make it. I'm not saying that you have to dumb everything down, right? I'm not saying that you've got to make it so this guy is going that way in time, the other guy's going that way. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm saying like if they touch each other, if they see each other, the end, explosion, boom. I'm not saying that. Don't make it. Don't go. What's his face? The other director, Transformers director. I keep forgetting his name. Explosion.
Michael Bay.
Michael Bay. Don't go Michael Bay on us, but like at least try. Keep it high end, but at least go with go and give us something that's slightly a little bit more digestible. That's it. I'm done. You guys can talk.
We should take a break there because we got 4 minutes left on the recording. Jesus, and I can recover.
I will press end.
You were holding that in, buddy. Damn.
I mean, don't go full Michael Bay on me, but like a little bit, guy.
All right, for everyone who's listening, I will break it up right here, and we'll come back when we stop crying.
So, it sounds like Tom had some stuff bottled up about this movie. And I will say, I have heard of people dunking on movies, but when you invoked Michael Bay, you broke the backboard, dude.
I'm not dunking on the movie. I actually liked it. Funny enough. But go for it.
But now the bar has been set high for dunking Tim. Over to you, sir. Would you like to come in over the Michael Bay bar or below the Michael Bay bar?
I think I'm going to go below the Michael Bay bar. I have two sort of qualms with the movie. One is structural, so that kind of fits in this episode, and then the other one is kind of more geeky and nerdy, and so maybe that starts to get into the second episode.
Keep it for part two.
We'll kind of tee that up.
Yeah. Keep that sweet content for us.
Yeah, and so the first one is really that it's overstuffed. I mean, I've heard it described, like I think it was on, like you said, JC, on the Black Check podcast, where they said it feels like a 5-hour movie that's had all of the fat trimmed out, and so there's too much in it. You have this incredibly complicated idea of having characters act in a way where cause and effect seems reversed. With forward-going characters, so you have reverse characters and forward characters, and that requires a lot of thought to be able to piece together to understand what is happening on screen. And then it's also a breathless Bond movie. Like, it's one of the fastest Bond movies that I've ever seen, right? I think it probably is. I'm fairly comfortable saying that I've never seen a Bond movie that's got this much action and this little, just like space to kind of, catch your breath. And the budget for the film kind of backs that up too, right? It's super expensive. and so, and then the second piece, the second complaint is that like, and I'll lean into the nerdiness. I sort of hesitate, but I think this is exactly the podcast to get into it. The rules don't all the way make sense. So we'll talk about that in the next one. But like, if you're gonna do this, and there are ways to do it, you didn't quite get all your explanations out on screen. So the audience has to guess or bring things to the table where you're like, well, it's probably this way, because that seems that's the most parsimonious way of making the film coherent. And you, like, as a nerd who likes an action film, like, I want it to be coherent. I want the rules to make sense. So that's all I'll say in part one.
Oh, wow.
All right, so taking us out then, Tom. Should we wrap this one up to get ready for number two? Take us to the hypocenter, sir.
The hypocenter.
We're Splinter Cell. Let's go down the tunnel.
Oh God, Jesus! Wow, that's high expectations for my my outro. Anyway, okay, look, we'll stop here right here. We'll jump into part two. Thanks, guys, for this very entertaining part one. What's part two again? We're doing the theories and questions. I think this would be enjoyable. We're not going to laugh in that one. We'll take it seriously. There's not going to be any funny business at all. Okay, we'll
very serious.
Absolutely, 100%.
Cool.
We'll lean into Tim's knowledge as a Google man. So I
use Google very well. Yes.
Do you guys use Google at work?
Oh yeah. Oh,
Tim is so funny. He's like, no, we on Bing. Just like all the
advanced settings.
Yeah, the entertaining thing is that the internal search is as bad as all internal company searches are. So the external product is excellent. The internal search is like, it's okay.
Oh, maybe we should have a podcast about the life of a Googler.
Shouldn't throw shade at the search team.
No.
Thank you very much. It works great. I know it's a hard problem.
Yeah. They contribute a couple of bucks to the whole organization occasionally.
No, external search, right, is like, because it's driven by all that ads revenue, there's a lot of impetus to have that be a very high quality product. Inside, you have none of that impetus other than it's like, it should work a little bit. So,
It should work a little bit.
Yeah, the incentives are not aligned the same way.
my last totally serious question about Google. Is it really like that movie, The Internship? Is this what life
I've
is
never
like
seen it, so I can't comment.
Oh my God, I thought that you guys they'll make you watch it like right to cinema or something and just like, let's go watch The Internship. Anyway, you're going to watch it now. You don't want to watch that? It's a giant advert.
I haven't watched it. Yeah.
It's just one massive an hour and a half long advertisement for Google. It's funny in parts, but we're not going to go in there. Anyway, thanks everyone for listening to part one of our Tenet special. We'll be seeing you all in part two. Again, thanks everyone who's been watching, listening, subscribing, sharing, liking. If you've not subscribed just yet, either on YouTube or whatever listening platform you're catching us on, please do so and leave us a review, because reviews are important. Hey, on Google, especially on Google, it matters. Give us 5 stars, because
yes,
we deserve it, I think. If you've been entertained, please do like and share and talk about our podcast to your mom, your partner, your wife, your dog, your son, whoever is around in the next to you. It's been part one of Tenet Special. Yeah.
Yep. And if you're tuning out now, just say thank you to Tim for joining us on this podcast, and thank you to Tom for doing all that he does behind the scenes to make this a wonderful place to talk to people.
To talk about that. Right, we'll see you all in part 2. Thank you for listening to part 1, and we'll jump right off and we'll say, hey, part 2 is next. Thank you for everyone for listening. Bye.
Posterity.